That's actually not a bug. It is a feature for the people who control them. That's what we ultimately need to dismantle in American politics. And I think Donald Trump winning this November is
that made him go for a
in the foreseeable future to actually dismantle that managerial class in the deep state. That's what we're up against. And the figure
get everything to even out first.
Well, they think that somehow pouring more money into Ukraine.
See how many drop frames we get now. I ain't really legally going on Facebook yet. Might as well see how that works.
Well, Putin gets back on his heels. But is that what Americans
get them all going?
Do they want us more deeply entrenched and possibly risking thermonuclear war with these people in charge?
Yeah, there ain't that much frames.
We're closer to World War III than we've ever been in my life.
Very little
This used to be something
frames being dropped. Let me see.
Party is actually part of that pro-war machine, and I do worry, Laura. You think about the American people's trust in the people who are making decisions. The same people on the south side of Chicago who see him.
Let me mute that. Oh wow, it's seemed to be staying. Let me see this. Where's it at? Now, oh, that's live now. All right. I don't look too bad, I guess. It's going. It's going. Let's see how long. Let's see how long it goes. Oh, all right. Let's turn this off right now. Oh, shoot. I gotta be over here, I guess. Turn that off right now. No. Hey, there's my buddies coming to see me. Oh, let's see if a video plays very good. Let's see what's this.
I don't think you're happy enough. That's right. I'll teach you to be happy. I'll teach your grandmother to suck eggs. Now, boys and girls, let's try it again. Happy, happy, joy, joy, 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 joy. If you ain't the granddaddy of all liars.
All right. Well, I guess that. Oh shoot, where'd that go? Give me back. Give me back. There we go. All right, I guess I'm back. Let's see. Do I still got my chat here? Oh, yeah, there. I think that's still going. Oh, I might move it over here though. No. Boom, 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 boom. Let's check this real quick. What does this look like? Oh, I got a picture on Twitch. Alright, folks. It looks like things are going alright. Finally. I think I squared away my technical difficulties pretty well. Let's look at this real quick. Now, I know you dropped some frames, but it isn't that bad, I don't think. I don't think it's that sketchy. Anyways, as I was saying before I left the air the first time, we've been, the Democrats have been hit with the dilemma, and old Biden's doing his big boy big boy interview right now. So I'm going to get rid of Batman here. And let's put this on. Let's put
prevent wars in the first place.
this on.
For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening.
I'm going to rewind it to the beginning for me. Oh, there it is.
It's an opportunity for us.
Yeah, this is about to start. They're introducing Joe Biden. He's walking out on stage. This is a Fox News alert. President Biden walking out and the long-delayed news conference. Let's watch.
We just concluded this year's NATO summit, and the consensus among members was it was a great success.
All right.
So especially momentous because it represented the
I
75th
rewinded
year,
it.
the most important military defense alliance in the world's history of the world. We should never forget
I wonder how long
that
it's going to take for him to get to actually taking some questions. We're not on the fake news,
a free and democratic nation.
so there won't be any cutaways if there's
So
some
combat
dilemma.
and collective defense. Standing together,
Even the fake news, they're getting it now.
Would be treated as an attack on all. And it's worked. Because a would-be aggressor knows if they attack one of us, they'll be attacked by all of us.
Oh, shoot.
Sending that message is the best way to deter aggression and prevent wars in the first place. For those who thought NATO's time had passed, they got a rude awakening when Putin
Let me
invaded
see if I
Ukraine.
can
Some of the
put something
oldest
on this
and
chat over
deepest
here.
fears in Europe roared back to life. Because once again, a murderous madman was on the march.
I'm in the midst of getting my chats
No
all
one cowered
together
in
and
appeasement.
put them on where it'll be on the screen,
We collected intelligence the
so
Russians
I can
planned
watch.
to invade
I don't
Ukraine
have to sit there and watch screen,
before the
two
invasion.
different screens.
I directed the intelligence community to be a significant amount of intelligence to be declassified, so I could start building an international.
Wonder if they
coalition
gave him
against
some
invasion.
go juice this time.
Then in February, some of you remember, I warned the world that the invasion was imminent. I rallied a coalition of 50 nations from Europe to
This
Asia.
is my impression of Biden.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine.
Oh
But
man.
Putin thought it was the
So we've
murder
had,
home of Russia.
I don't know how many senators and congressmen come to
But
him and
Ukrainian
tell him,
people,
you ain't gonna
backed by
beat
a
Trump.
coalition to help build
You need to
stop.
drop out.
Today,
And now we got Hollywood on his ass.
and NATO stands.
Oh, big George Clooney, the guy that
During the week
that
of this summit,
went to bat for him and had that little bit of fundraiser, Democratic fundraiser for him.
NATO has achieved.
That was before the debate, yeah, where Obama had to haul his ass off stage because he didn't know where to go once again.
It makes a gigantic difference. Excuse me.
And then the failure, the big
He's made it clear
debate failure.
he has no commitment to NATO. He's made it clear that he would feel no obligation.
I kind of had the interview broke down. I was going to comment on the George
In fact,
Stephanopoulos, whatever his name
it
is,
was genius.
his
It was wonderful.
his
So
interview.
that's exactly what he said.
What I was going to do, I was going to talk about it a little bit. I guess we can watch this here, and I can comment on this. First of all, though, I wanted to show you something that came up. Oh, where is this?
And that was to defend America after 9/11.
See,
I made it clear.
let me turn this down where I can barely hear it that way. But
That's exactly what we did.
oh, what is it?
Exactly what we continue to do.
After the interview, a reporter from TMZ came by old George and
Much more than political question.
asked him a question, and George was
Security issue.
obliged to give him an answer.
That people talk about issues that made a political campaign.
Hey, how you doing? What do you think? You think Biden should step down? You talk to him more than anybody else has lately. And you could be honest. You don't being social way. Alright. That's an answer.
So TMZ reporter goes by him and says, hey, what do you think about Trump, or what do you think about Biden? You've been the one talking to him more lately than anybody. And he ended up saying, I don't think he can do another 4 years. That was after the interview, folks. Let's turn this back on, I guess. I'll turn it up a little bit. Maybe you can hear a little bit. He started his little, what do you want to call it? His campaign when he started running for president in the first place on unity. Not a one damn year he's been in office has there been any unity. And he was talking about both parties. Now his party's about to implode. And let's see. I don't know, folks. You know, just playing devil's advocate here. I kind of think he will get pushed out. I mean, I understand it's a sad situation, dementia. My mother died with dementia, not of dementia, with dementia. She got really bad there. And man, I see signs all over Joe Biden of dementia. It is becoming really sad, man. And I'm starting to kind of feel sorry for the son of a gun.
The United States is working to secure a ceasefire in Gaza.
Should be in jail.
He should be in jail.
For peace and stability in the Middle East.
Oh,
6 weeks
man.
ago,
Oh,
You are fake news.
yeah. That's me.
was endorsed by the UN Security Council, the G7.
But anyway.
That framework is now agreed on by both Israel and Hamas.
Ooh,
So send my team to the region.
he's
to
attacking
explore the
Trump.
details. These are difficult, complex issues. There's still gaps to close. We're making progress.
His predecessor.
The trend is positive. And I'm determined to get this deal done and bring an end to this war.
His
which
predecessor.
ends now.
If his predecessor was in office, there wouldn't be these
We're the
wars.
United States of America.
Let's be honest,
We
folks.
are the indispensable nation.
That is the
Our
truth
leadership
right there.
matters. Our partnerships
Those
matter.
guys would not.
This moment matters. We must rise to meet it. With that, I'll take your questions. I've been given a list
Looks
of
like
people
my
to call
screen's
on
having
here.
trouble.
Reuters, Jeff Mason.
Mr. President,
Just
your
my
political
connection
future
on my
has
phone.
hung over the NATO summit a little bit this week. Speaker Pelosi made a point of suggesting that your decision on whether to stay in the race was still open. George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called
First
on
question.
side. Reuters is reporting tonight that UAW leadership is concerned about your ability to win.
UAW just endorsed me, but go ahead.
Thank you. My question for you is, how are you incorporating these developments into your decision to stay? And separately, what concerns do you
being
have about
selfish.
Vice President Harris's ability
Oh,
to
Jill
beat
is.
Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President, but I think she was not qualified
What?
to be
Vice
president.
President
So
Trump?
let's start there. Number one. The fact is that the consideration is that I think I'm the most qualified person to run for president. I beat him once,
This is big
and I'll
boy.
beat him again. Secondly, the
Let's
idea
see if we get
I
some
served
real
in the Senate
questions.
a long
So
time.
he's getting used to
The
this
idea
question.
that senators and congressmen running for office.
Oh, he's got a cold again. Oh no!
And I might add,
Is Trump yelling at him?
5 presidents running or incumbent presidents who had lower numbers than I have now, later in the campaign. So there's a long way to go in this campaign.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to
don't think you can make it.
keep moving. And
There's a
because,
long
look,
way
I
to
got
go.
more work to do. We got more
And
work
he's
to
going to
finish.
trip and
There's
fall
so
all
much, we
over
made
it.
so much progress. Think about
Oh, dropping
it. Think about
frames.
where we are economically relative to the rest of the world.
I hope you're all
Name me a world leader
okay
who
out
want to
there
trade places
watching
with
me.
our economy. We've created over 800,000 manufacturing jobs, 1.5 million jobs. I mean, so things are moving. We got more to go. Working class
don't
people
blame
still
me,
need
guys.
help. Corporate greed is still at large. And their prices, their corporate profits have doubled since the pandemic. They're coming down. And so I'm optimistic about where things are going.
They're coming down.
Dan Kemp, AFP.
Oh, he's got a list of who to call on. He's got a list of who to call on.
Mr. President. I wanted to
But
ask you about your,
he's already got
list of,
questions.
Presidents Zelensky and Putin earlier today.
You want to ask a question, you got to ask this
And you
question.
now have sort of your key allies, including the British Prime Minister, the President of France, and the German Chancellor having to step in and make excuses for you on that.
He knows who's
saying
going
off the
to...
record that your decline has become noticeable. Hasn't this now, frankly, become damaging for America's standing in the world? Thank you.
Did you see any damage to our standing by leading this conference? Have you seen a more successful conference? What do you think? The Putin piece, I was talking about Putin and I said...
Old Trump had more...
At the very end. I said, I mean, Putin. I said, no, I'm sorry, Zelensky. And then I had 5 other names. Look, guys.
Look,
The
guys.
idea anybody suggests that
He's
we
lost.
haven't had an incredibly successful conference. How many times did you hear
Come on,
in
man.
that conference? I know it sounds too self-serving, but other leaders on the stage.
General, it brings me to my next point.
Because of Biden.
Don't smoke
Because
crack.
Biden did the following. Look, folks, this is
Look, folks.
well, anyway, I thought it was the most successful conference I've attended in a long time. And finally,
It was just take his
it
word for
was.
it. It was a successful
Next
conference.
one.
It
Sorry,
was.
Nancy
Just take his
Cordes.
word for it.
CBS.
Thank you, Mr. President. You mentioned other instances in history where presidents have faced a challenge, but what makes this moment in history so unique is that it is not your enemies who are calling on you to reconsider your decision to stay in the race. It's your friends,
Colleagues.
supporters, people who think you've done a great job over the past 4 years. Have you
What are
spent
you
time
doing in my
thinking about
swamp?
what it would mean for your legacy, which you've worked decades to build, if you stay in the race, despite the concerns that voters say they have, and you lose to someone who you yourself have argued is unfit to return to the Oval Office?
I'm not in this for my legacy. I'm in this to complete the job I started. As you recall,
Few moments later.
Many economists thought my initial initiatives that I put forward can't do that. It's going to cause inflation. Things are going to skyrocket. The debt's going to go up. What are you hearing now from mainstream economists? 16 economic Nobel laureates said I've done a hell of a job.
So, I'm sure if you want to know all the lies that he's telling, you can go on Fox here later. I'm not going to stay on.
Things are going to get much
I
better.
don't know if I'll make
Our
it stay on
economy's
for the
coming.
whole
I was determined when I got elected
interview and
to
all.
stop trickle-down economic theory. Because the wealthy did very well, everybody else would do well. My dad was a well-read, decent guy. I don't remember much trickling down on his kitchen table. Middle-class people and working-class people need help. And so what happened is I decided to implement, was able to implement as president, what I believed when I was a senator. And that is that the way to build this economy is from the middle out and the bottom up.
I suck as a salesman. Let's say I go to some guy's office. Let's say he's even remotely interested in buying something. Well, then I get all excited. I'm like, Jojo, the Indian circus boy, the pretty new pet. The pet is my possible sale. Oh, my pretty little.
We got more to do. We got to
I
finish the
love
job.
you. So I
And by the
stroked
way, I
it,
come from the corporate
I
state
pet it,
world. Delaware
and
had
fat.
corporations and,
Yeah,
you know,
I love my little naughty cat. You're naughty. And then I take my naughty cat and I go.
It's time to get back in.
Oh!
It's time.
I killed her! I killed myself!
Kept a 5% increase in corporate rents for apartments and the like.
He's here lying,
To
man.
5%. We're gonna make a lot of changes that I've been talking about.
The economy still sucks, man.
And by the way, I know. Remember how I got union, not labor, union. Well, guess what? I'm in
Oh man, I hope that's not
a joke.
the real thing, man. That's.
We have the Treasury Department doing a study.
Where's my pointer?
Do better. Everybody does better. Everybody does better. And we talk about how, for example,
It looks like Facebook's running all right.
remember when we talked about beginning the computer chip industry back in the United States? Used to be 40% of the industry. We
Must be my phone not getting used. Every once in a while I see it trying to buffer my
And
phone.
former presidents decided that the best way to do it is find the cheapest labor in the world.
Yeah,
So
let
go
a
there
bunch
and
of
report what the
illegals in. That's
And so, what did I do? I was told not to go over to Europe. I mean, to Asia, including Europe,
speaking
Asia.
of,
And I remember going
Republicans
to
passed a bill
convincing them to invest
requiring
$20
people
billion
to prove that they're
in
a
the United States
citizen,
to
that
build
they,
computer
legally
chip
vote.
factories. And I asked why when they finally
Might not go in the Senate, but
And the answer
let's
was
find out
because
who
you're the
denies
safest
that.
economy in the world.
Everybody should have to prove that they can
whole
vote
idea
legally,
is
especially with all these illegals
we
being
invested
brought in.
over $50 billion in investment in computer chip manufacturing just coming in being. None of you thought that would happen.
Vice President Trump.
But it's happening.
Let's see what it says. Biden calls VP Harris Vice President.
And by the way, red states and blue states. Manufacturers are much in red states and blue states. I made no distinction. So my generic point
Red
is
states and blue states, I don't know, I don't care. I'm all different colors.
Continuing to build and grow the economy.
DEI.
And like I said, from my standpoint, when the middle class does well, that's
when the upper class does well, it trickles down a lot easier than trickling up. Because it's hard for us to make ends meet in the middle and go up.
Kamala Harris would be ready to serve on day one. Can you elaborate on that? What is it about her attributes and her accomplishments over the last 4 years that make her ready to serve on day one if necessary?
First of all, the way she's handled the issue of freedom of women's bodies, to have control of their bodies. Secondly, her ability to handle almost any issue on the board. This was a hell of a prosecutor. She was a first-rate person, and in the Senate she was really good. I wouldn't have picked her unless I thought she was qualified to be president. From the very beginning. I made no bones about that. She is qualified to be president. That's why I picked her.
Yeah, who should I call next? Predetermined people to be called on.
Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
So limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and
A few moments later.
That's not true. Look, what I said
Eternity
was,
later.
instead of my every day
Eventually.
and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff, instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock, and get home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, and if you look at my schedule since I made that stupid mistake in the campaign, in the debate, I mean, my schedule has been full bore.
Stupid mistake in debate.
And where's Trump been? Riding around his golf cart?
Debates is what it's all about, people. That's our democracy.
And he's done virtually nothing.
Debates are part of the democracy that works. Figuring out who you want.
Roughly 20 major
What
events.
one do you want?
Somewhere 1,000 people showing up.
I mean,
And so,
He even knows which one. You want that guy over there.
I always have an
You want
inclination,
Trump.
whether I was playing sports or doing politics, just to keep going, not stop. I just gotta just pace myself a little more. Pace myself. In the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling in just 15 time zones until a week before. Anyway.
He needs to pace himself. Have you seen him walk?
And by the way, even with that, I love my staff, but they add things.
Mannequin impression.
I'm catching hell from my wife. Anyway.
Catching hell from his wife. Yeah, we know. She's the one running things.
Zeke Miller, Associated Press.
Thank you, Mr. President. Two questions for you. First, on the NATO summit, President Zelensky, in your meeting with him, he pressed you to lift your limitations on the Ukrainian use of American weapons, saying that, in his public remarks afterwards, saying that Ukraine cannot win the war unless those limitations are lifted. Are you reconsidering your position on that? And then secondly, following up on Felicia's question there, leaders of your own party have said that they're not worried about that debate. They're worried about the next bad night and the bad night after that. How can you reassure the American people that you are up to the task and that there won't be more bad nights at the debate stage or somewhere else?
Get back to it.
First thing about Zelensky asking for the ability to strike deep into Russia. We've allowed Zelensky to use American weapons in the near term, in the near or abroad, into Russia. Whether or not he should be attacked. For example, should Zelensky, he's not. If he had the capacity to strike Moscow, strike the Kremlin, would that make sense?
No,
it wouldn't.
That don't make sense.
What's the best use of the weaponry he has, the weaponry we're getting to him? I've gotten a more long-range capacity, as well as defensive capacity. And so our military is where I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military,
whatever his name is,
the Secretary of Defense, and our intelligence people. And we're making a day-to-day basis on what they shouldn't go, how far they should win. That's a logical thing to do. Second question related to
bad nights, sir. How do you reassure the American people that they won't have more bad nights, whether they be on a debate stage or it's a matter of foreign policy?
Well, I tell you what, the best way to
shit. Here we go again.
And that is, am I getting the job done? Am I getting the job done? Can you name me somebody who got one major piece of legislation passed in 3.5 years? I created 2,000 jobs just last week.
Hey, Pepper, where you at?
I can't get the job done. That's a sign
Pepper,
that I shouldn't be doing it. But there's no indication of that yet.
So, and now for this break. No, wait a minute. Who's got call on? What's on the list? You should be checking them off so you know where you're at.
Pulaski Radio.
Thank you, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm well.
No, hey.
Elections in the US have consequences around the world. You have pretty high standing in Europe. I just
another fake news person
about you, and he said we
are
happy
coming against him,
to have him as the president of the
they're all
United
coming
States.
out now. We know they're really fake news because they're all saying, well, maybe he is having a hard time.
I'm worried that the former president may win the election.
Continue on. And shit's coming out like they already knew it. Like George Clooney, he was. Why did he wait so long?
NATO, stop supporting Ukraine or push Ukraine to give up territories to Russia.
They're correct.
And you yourself was warning just 2 minutes ago about it. So my question is, do you think that Europe will be left on its own if Donald Trump wins the election? And what's your advice to European leaders to prepare for possible US disengagement?
Softball!
I think, how can I say this without sounded too self-serving.
Self-serving.
I'm not having any of my
He's self-serving, all right.
European allies come up and say, Joe, don't run. What I hear them say is, you've got to win. I can't let this guy come forward. It'd be a disaster.
Hey, Trump wants America first.
I mean,
where we belong. We've been doing everything for everybody.
Where NATO, I just
pulling
learned
the
about
biggest
NATO,
stump.
Foreign policy has never been his strong point. And he seems to have an affinity to people who are authoritarian.
Getting politicians paid off to do it.
That worries Europe. That worries Poland. And nobody, including the people of Poland, think
that's
that
why you don't want to quit.
Ukraine is going to stop in Ukraine. But that's going to be the end of it. And so, what I can say is, I think I'm the best qualified person to do the job, to make sure that Ukraine does not fall, that Ukraine succeeds, that the European alliance stays strong. No one was talking about Finland joining NATO. I remember talking to Putin right after we got elected in Geneva, and he was talking about what we should do. We couldn't have be in Eastern Europe. And I said, they're looking for the Finlandization
Watch
of Ukraine.
it, yo!
Because you're going to get the NATOization of Finland. And about 4 weeks later, I got a call. No, that's not true. Probably 5 months later.
Finish him!
Could he come and see me?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
We sat down and talked. He said he wanted to join NATO. Could I help? And I did. It wasn't automatic. And then I got a call from the Swedes.
Swiss.
I beg your pardon? And so Finland joined NATO. 800 miles.
I want to know what they said.
They were already allies.
It was an inaudible.
And you heard, I think you heard, maybe, I can't recall what he said in public in our closed meeting, but he wouldn't mind being repeated. He said, we decided in Finland, the people of Finland decided they had to be part of NATO. It was in our interest because of the joint ability to be together, just to dissuade any attack on Finland. And the same thing with Sweden. It took a lot of selling to some folks, particularly in Turkey and other places, to agree to the expansion. But they expanded. And we're a hell of a lot stronger because of it. We're more secure because of it.
Make sure y'all hear
and by the way,
this
BS.
BS.
50 other nations, 50 to support Ukraine. 50. And we're able to of Europe and Asia, Japan and South Korea. I just met with, we talked about AUKUS, we talked about the relationship between Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, the United States. We're making the world safer and stronger because we have to deal with a new arrangement that exists in the world.
Why is our military becoming weaker?
The post-war era is over. What is going to replace it? And I respectfully suggest I have a pretty good idea what that should be. I've convinced a lot of people to follow it, and we're just going to get stronger.
Maybe I'll put this on right now.
David Sanger. Where is it?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Hey, if you like me, man, this is my cash out.
The NATO declaration that was issued yesterday.
Give me a little bit.
Was very notable because it described China as a decisive enabler of the war in Ukraine and for its provision of critical goods to the Russians. That's part of a
hey, Mary, how's it going?
That seems to have cemented in place in the past 2 or 3 years. I think one that you were a little bit doubtful of when we asked you about it some time ago. So I'd be interested to know whether you have a strategy now of trying to interrupt the partnership between China and Russia.
That's a good question.
In a second term,
what are you going to do about China and Russia being
that strategy to us?
Partners with Iran? Don't forget Iran.
You think, just to follow up on Felicia's question,
that if you were in a room with Vladimir Putin again, the way you were 3 years ago,
3 years ago,
President Xi, that a few years from now you will be able to go negotiate with them, handle them one-on-one?
Well, the first part of the question is, we discussed and I raised in the NATO summit, and others
Trump
raised,
is the only one that can break
the
that
future of China's involvement, what they're going to do. What they're doing with Russia.
He ain't gonna break up the partnership.
Facilitating them, they're getting access.
First of all, they need to make Iran lose some money.
The supply mechanisms for them to be able to get weapons.
That's the first thing he needs to do.
China's position
Second
is
thing,
basically,
I've
spent more time with Xi Jinping than anyone ever has. Over
on China a little
since
bit
being vice
heavier.
president all the way through, for real.
And they'll let
And
loose.
by the way, hey, all
Because
my notes.
Russia right now,
But my point is
he's
that
at the brink. He don't give a F, you know.
she believes that China is a large enough
But if
market
he's alone,
that they can entice any country, including European countries,
he
to
ain't gonna
invest there
stand.
in return for commitments from Europe to do A, B, C, or D, or not to do certain things. What's happened is we had a long discussion about what we cannot. You have to make it clear China has to understand that if they are supplying Russia with information and capacity,
that's all.
along with working with North Korea and others to help Russia in armament, that they're not going to benefit economically as a consequence of that by getting the kind of investment they're looking for. And so, for example,
Arresting me for what? I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry, I thought this was us. It's a communist country or something? No, it's America.
Well, we set up a new mechanism. There's a direct line between Xi and me, and our military has direct access to one another, and they contact one another when we have problems.
She's got y'all. I'm telling you, man.
We have to make sure
people that think he's
that
still
she
able to
understands
handle his job
there's a
or
price
nothing
to
but
pay
sheep.
for undercutting both.
Nothing but sheep.
I'm a sheep. I said beep beep. I'm a sheep.
As well as Europe, and as relates to Russia and dealing with Ukraine. And so, we, for example, if you want to invest in China, as you know this area really well, but invest in China, you have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you do by their rules, and you don't have the authority, and you have to provide all access to all the There was a while there, as you recall, the last administration and other administrations, where the access to that market was enticing enough to get companies to come in because they had access to over $1 billion. New industrial policy in the West. For example, we talked about how both the EU as well as NATO has to be able to begin to build their own munition capacity, has to be able to generate their own capacity to provide for weapons and the ability to, it came as a surprise to some of us how we had fallen behind in the West in terms of the ability to construct new material, new weaponry, new everything from
changed the hour and it went on ahead to
vehicles
the next
to
hour.
weapon systems. And so one of the things that came out of this was we're going to be meeting again with a number of my colleagues, my European colleagues, is what do we do to increase the capacity of the West, particularly in Europe and Japan, to be able to generate kind of ability to produce their own weapon systems. Not just for themselves, but to be able to generate that.
But why?
That's what Russia's trying to figure out. That they went to China and they didn't get the weapons, but then they went to North Korea. But we're going to be in a position where the West is going to become the industrial base for it to be able to build the ability to have all the defensive weapons that we need. That was a discussion as well.
I think you answered on whether you would be ready to go deal with Putin and Xi 2 or 3 years from now.
I'm ready to deal with them now and 3 years from now. Look,
Oh, he's running out of steam. Whatever they're giving him is wearing off.
And direct contact. I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now. There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior. And but there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with. But I understand that a generic point is Putin ready to talk? I'm not ready to talk to Putin unless Putin's ready to change his behavior. And the idea, look, Putin's got a problem.
Putin's got a problem.
In this war that he has supposedly won. And by the way, I think, don't hold me the exact number, but I think that Russia had 17.3% of Ukraine that they've conquered. Now it's 17.4. I mean, in terms of percentage of territory. They've not been very successful. They've caused horrible damage and loss of life, but they've also lost over 350,000 troops, military, killed and wounded. They have over 1 million people, particularly young people with technical capability, leaving Russia because they see no future there. They've got a problem. But what they do have control of is they are very good at controlling and running the public outcry that relates to how they use mechanisms to communicate with people. They lie like hell to the constituencies. They lie like hell about what's going on. And so the idea that we're going to be able to fundamentally change Russia in the near term is not likely. But one thing for certain, if we allow Russia to succeed in Ukraine, they're not stopping in Ukraine. I recommend, I know you know this because you've written about it, read Putin's speech after they moved in, what it was all about in Kyiv. It wasn't about just, anyway, read what his objective is. And anyway, but so I think that I'm prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including if Putin called me and wanted to talk. Last time I talked to Putin was trying to get him to work on an arms control agreement related to nuclear weapons in space. That didn't go very far. So my point is, I'm prepared to talk to anybody, but I don't see any inclination. There is an inclination on the part of the Chinese to keep in contact with me, because they're not sure where this all goes. And look what's happened in Asia. We have strengthened the Asian Pacific area more than anyone else has. We just put together with, today I brought on, I asked our NATO allies that we bring on a group from the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Australia. I already mentioned Australia. And I met twice now, I think, with the 14 leaders of the Pacific Island nations. And we've slowed down what's going on there. We've slowed down China's reach. But there's a lot of work to do. This is a moving target, and I don't take it lightly. Sam from NPR.
Thank you, Mr. President. Asma Khalid with NPR. I have two questions. Earlier, you spoke about the ceasefire plan between Israel and Hamas. We're now looking at 10 months of war, and I'm curious if there's anything that you feel personally you wish you would have done differently over the course of the war. And then secondly, if I may, I wanted to ask you about your presidential campaign. I remember covering your campaign in 2020, and there was a moment where you referred to yourself as a, quote, bridge candidacy, a transition to a younger generation of leaders. I want to understand what changed.
Two things. Let's go back to when you talked about would I change anything that's happening with Israel and the Palestinians and the Palestinian movement. The answer is, you recall, from the very beginning, I went to Israel, but I also got a meeting contact with Sisi in Egypt. I met with the King of Jordan. I met with most of the Arab leaders to try to get a consensus going as to what had to be done to deal with getting more aid and food and medicine into the Gaza Strip. And
it looks like Twitch
we pushed it really hard. And Israel occasionally was less than cooperative, number one. The Israeli War Cabinet, I've been dealing with Israel since Golda Meir. I saw some of the reporters around here come here all the time, heard me say this. The first time I met with Golda Meir, I said...
That's what she said!
And across the desk, and her assistant was Rabin, sitting next to me. That's how far back I go. I know Israel well. I support Israel. But this war cabinet is one of the most conservative war cabinets in the history of Israel. And there's no ultimate answer other than a two-state solution here. And so what was able to be done in terms of the organization would be a process for a two-state solution. And we get the Arab nations to,
oh my God, who the hell cares?
To be in a position where they would cooperate in the transition so that they can keep the peace in Gaza without Israeli forces staying in Gaza. The question's been from the beginning, what's the day after in Gaza? And the day after in Gaza has to be, and the end of the day after has to be no occupation by Israel in the Gaza Strip, as well as the ability for us to access.
He's telling Israel more or less what they need to do.
All that's needed there. I've been disappointed that some of the things that I put forward have not succeeded as well.
Because it's bullshit and stupid.
I was hopeful that would be more successful. But that's why when I went to Israel immediately after the massacres,
your successor Donald Trump will take care of that.
The one thing I said to the Israelis and met with the war cabinet and with Bibi, don't make the same mistake America made after bin Laden. There's no need to occupy anywhere.
You mean after Afghanistan?
You may recall I still get criticized for it, but I was totally opposed
to
the occupation and trying to unite
America did with Afghanistan.
Once we got bin Laden, we should have moved on. Because it was not in our, no one's ever going to unite that country. I've been over every inch of that, not every inch, the entirety from the poppy fields all the way to the north. I said, don't make the same mistake we made. Don't think that's what you should be doing, is doubling down. We'll help you find the bad guys. Sinwar and Company.
If you want to see me naked, it costs you $20.
I'm not providing 2,000-pound bombs. They cannot be used in Gaza or any populated area without causing great human tragedy and damage. But remember what happened when you had the attack on Israel with rockets and ballistic missiles. I was able to unite the Arab nations as well as Europe, and nothing happened. Nothing got hurt. It sent an incredible message to what was going on from the Middle East. So there's a lot of things that, in retrospect, I wish I had been able to convince the Israelis to do. But the bottom line is we have a chance now. It's time to end this war. Doesn't mean walk away from going after Sinwar and Hamas. And if you notice, you know better than most, there is a growing dissatisfaction on the West Bank.
Finish him!
From the Palestinians about Hamas.
Brutality.
And so, there's a lot of moving parts.
Oh, yeah! You gotta get swifty! You gotta get swifty in here! It's time to get swifty!
Look at the numbers in Israel. I mean, my numbers are better in Israel than they are here. But anyway.
The bridge candidacy in 2020, you referred to yourself as being a bridge candidate for a younger, fresher generation of Democratic leaders, and I wanted to know what changed.
What changed was the gravity of the situation I inherited in terms of the economy, our foreign policy, and
there you go. Blame it on Trump again. Put
words in anybody's mouth. Most
4 years later,
can be
almost
credited
back.
for having accomplished more than most any president since Johnson.
Oh, he's accomplished more, sure.
Legislation passed. And what I realized
Son, where'd you find this?
Oh, there's my kitty.
Had equipped me to have the wisdom of how to deal with the Congress
Pepper, she comes
to get
in.
things done. We got
Come
more
here, Pepper.
legislation passed.
Oh, let's watch the dirty old Biden man.
To get that finished. If tomorrow, if we had a circumstance where there was a lineup and I hadn't inherited what I did and we just moved things along, anyway, it's going to change.
Last question.
Why don't you go set the door? Over there, set.
Haley Bull Scripps.
That's your spot.
No, John Schweiger. I'm sorry.
Well, they can't see you.
I'll do
Unless
two
you
more
stay
questions.
above that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Many of your colleagues, Democrats on the Hill, are watching tonight as they assess what they want to say about your candidacy. I'm wondering how you're thinking about this right now. It seems like your answer is clear. They're watching how things go tonight, tomorrow in Michigan, next week in Texas and Nevada. Are you thinking that way about whether how the next week or two goes would inform you?
Am I using that way, sir?
Are you thinking that way about how the next 2 weeks go? Will that affect your decision, or are you fully determined on running in November as the party's nominee?
I'm determined on running, but I think it's important that I allay fears. I've seen, let them see me out
there's
there.
a mommy's there too.
You know, for the longest time
Well,
it was,
yes, I'm still on.
Biden's not prepared to sit with us unscripted. Biden's not prepared to, anyway. And so, when I'm doing
they're not
things that
putting
I've been
poster
doing, I think
movies
we're
on
over
TV.
20 major events, from Wisconsin to North Carolina, to demonstrate that I'm going out in the areas where we think we can win, where we can persuade people to move our way, or people already there. And then look, the other thing is, we have the most extensive campaign organization of anybody's had in a long, long time. We have well over 1,000 volunteers knocking on doors, making phone calls, making tens of thousands of phone calls.
I don't have
We
I
have
need to set up that
headquarters. I
other
forget exactly
camera
how
so
many
it's like I'm
set a
doing
number and then find out I'm off. But we have scores of
Oh,
headquarters
God, yes.
in all the toss-up states. We're organized, we're moving, and it's awful hard to replace in the near term. And so, and here's the other thing. I was in the Senate a long time. Very proud of what I've done in the Senate. I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee for a long time, and I was chairman of a ranking member and chairman of the Judiciary Committee.
And then I reappeared.
I'm going to be going down to the Johnson Library. Anyway, I'm going to be going around making the case for the things that I think we have to finish, and how we can't afford to lose what we've done or backslide on civil rights, civil liberties, women's rights, that little button we have. Control guns, not girls. I mean, the idea we're sitting around, this would come was so good as well. We're sitting around, more children are killed by a bullet than any other cause of death in the United States of America. What the hell are we doing? What are we doing?
You're killing people by letting
candidates say
fentanyl come over the
I'm
border.
not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. We got a Supreme Court that is what you might call the most conservative court in American history. This is ridiculous. There's so much we can do still. And I'm determined to get it done. It's about freedom. And by the way, I'll end this. Well, I'm not going to do that. Haley has to come up too. But
Oh, he's having a hard time, so he's going to
I
end it.
made a speech on democracy in Philadelphia at Independence Hall. And I'm not being critical, just observing. The bulk of the press, what the hell are you talking about that for? Democracy. And you did. Democracy is not an issue. Democracy is not an issue. Except the polling data shows 60% of people thought I was right. Thought I was right. I'm not asking you a question. You don't have to answer, obviously. But do you think our democracy is under siege based on this court? Do you think democracy is under siege based on Project 2025? Do you think he means what he says when he says he's going to do away with the civil service, eliminate the Department of Education? I mean, we've never been here before. And that's the other reason why I didn't really say hand off to another generation. I've got to finish this job. I've got to finish this job. Because there's so much at stake.
You had some discussions over the past few days with your press secretary about the question of health exams. And you said you take a cognitive test every day in this job. Are you open to taking another physical or test before the election? Governor Whitmer of Michigan, for instance, said it wouldn't hurt to take a test.
Well, look, two things. I've taken 3 significant and intense neurological exams by a neurologist. In each case, as recently as February. And they say I'm in good shape. Okay?
That's not someone that can be trusted. That's someone you're paying.
But I'm good. I'm tested every single day on my neurological capacity, the decisions I make every day. We talk to my staff, talk to my staff. Sometimes my staff talks a lot. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think you have them telling you that all the major ideas we've undertaken haven't been
tested every day
by me. I remember when
we see you on camera.
I'm going to go to South Korea where you get the chip. What are you doing? I'm going to get Japan and Korea back together again after essentially having hostilities toward one another since the end of World War II. I'm going to move and see if we can expand it. You know, the only thing age does is something that creates a little bit of wisdom if you pay attention. And so the point I'm making is...
What point are you making?
It's important that if the neurologist tells me he thinks I need another exam, by the way, I've laid every bit of the record out. I haven't done anything. You know, that's Trump for his, okay? I laid it all out. And every single day I'm surrounded by good docs. If they think there's a problem, I promise you, or even if they don't think it's a problem, they think I should have a neurological exam again, I'll do it. But no one's suggesting that to me.
We'll do it.
And I'll ask you another question. No matter what I did...
Your people, there's Democrats asking you to.
Did you have 7 docs? Did you have 2? What'd you have? Did you do this? How many times did... So, I am not opposed if my doctors tell me I should have another neurological exam.
Your doctors ain't going to tell you.
But that's where I am. Haley Bull, Scripps.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said you're making decisions
on
a day-to-day basis when it comes to support Ukraine. Does that mean you have not closed the door
on
further
considering
lifting restrictions for U.S.-made weapons inside Russia? And if I may, your convention is coming up where your delegates are pledged to make you the official nominee. If they have second thoughts, are they free to vote their conscience?
Obviously, they're free to do whatever they want, but I got overwhelming support.
It's about over.
Overwhelming support. I won, I forget how many votes I won in the primary. They're overwhelming. And so tomorrow, if all of a sudden I show up at the convention, everybody says we want somebody else, that's the democratic process. It's not going to happen.
That means you vote for someone else?
Sure. Look. I'll end this with this. I've served in the Senate a long time.
You've not misspoken there.
I understand the impetus of candidates running for local office and whether they think the top thing can help them or not. In my state of Delaware, which was a very, at least a purple, it was a red state when I started.
Is it going to stay on subject?
Red and blue.
He's going back to Delaware. You ain't saying in the same state.
I don't recall most of the Democratic presidents winning my state when I was a candidate. The truth of the matter is I understand the self-interest of a candidate. If they think that, running with Biden on top is going to hurt them, then they're going to run away. I get it. But so far, Go and look at the polling data in their states. Look at the in-depth, and by the way, I think you all acknowledge, and you're all experts, I'm not being solicitous about the president, you're experts on this stuff. How accurate does anybody think the polls are these days? I can give a series of polls where you have likely voters, me versus Trump, where I win all the time. When the
Alright, gotta break monotony up.
Sometimes. So bottom line is all the polling data right now, which I think is premature because the campaign really hadn't even started.
Where you at, Zoe?
I mean, it hadn't started in earnest.
You didn't come back in here.
Most of the time it doesn't start till after September, after Labor Day.
Where'd you go, Zoe?
So, a lot can happen. But I think I'm the best qualified. I believe I'm the best qualified.
A lot has happened.
And I think I'm the best qualified to win. But there are other people who could beat Trump too. But it's all start from scratch. And, we talk about, money raised. We're not doing bad. We got about $220 million in the bank. And we're doing well. So, with that...
Yeah, and those same people are wanting to take the money back.
Yes. You earlier explained confidence in your vice president.
Hey, Jason.
Your team came back and showed you data that she would fare better against former President Donald Trump. Would you reconsider your decision to stay in the race?
No, unless they came back and said, there's no way you can win.
It's almost over. He's grabbed his book, a list of people to call on.
No poll says that.
Mr. President,
This ends today.
He's one to walk away. He didn't call any good. There hadn't been any good questions yet.
This concludes.
Respectfully, earlier you misspoke in your opening answer. You preferred Vice President Harris as Vice President Trump. Right now, Donald Trump is using that to mock your age and your memory. How do you combat that criticism from tonight?
Listen to him.
Listen to him. Oh, now see, he can't answer that. He's still calling. He was calling.
Wrapping up that big boy press
Here's
conference.
Vice President Trump.
About an hour. A few questions.
Yeah, he was, but it's.
Actually,
he was his big boy interview with the NATO.
Says he thinks he has the best chance to win, and it's too late to start from scratch.
Oh, Jesse's on now.
Started off today.
We could sit here and listen and see what
confusing Zelensky
Jesse will bring up what he.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
I called Zelensky.
You can beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
Hey.
Not beating Putin. We got to worry about it.
Why don't we see all the flub ups here recently? That's a big insult. That's a big insult. Getting called
on the heels of that
his adversary's name.
Exhausted and then faded towards the end, fighting for his political survival against Barack Obama, the Clintons, the media, the donors, half of his political party. But says he's in it to win it.
Half the parties want him to step aside.
Backing NATO and then claiming that inflation and illegal immigration is down. And also promising to get a ceasefire going in Gaza.
Inflation is not down.
He began this press conference by confusing Kamala for Trump. Watch.
What concerns do you have about Vice President Harris's ability to beat Donald Trump if she were at the top of the ticket?
Look, I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President.
Wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be Vice President.
Okay, so that was obviously the question at the very end that you just saw, the follow-up. Donald Trump already capitalizing politically on that major gaffe. There were several gaffes throughout that press conference, constantly interrupting himself and just saying, anyway, losing his train of thought multiple times. He was asked about his schedule and the fact that he doesn't really keep hours after 4, sometimes 8 o'clock in the evening. He said this was because he needs to pace himself better and then blamed his staff. Listen.
Presidency is the most straining job in the world, and it's 24/7. How can you say you'll be up for that next year, in 2 years, in 4 years, given the limits you've acknowledged that you have today?
What limits I've acknowledged I have?
There's been reporting that you've acknowledged that you need to go to bed earlier and your evening around 8.
That's not true. Look, what I said was, instead of my every day starting at 7 and going to bed at midnight, it'd be smarter for me to pace myself a little more. And I said, for example, the 8, 7, 6 stuff. Instead of starting a fundraiser at 9 o'clock, start at 8 o'clock. People get to go home by 10 o'clock. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about.
Oh, man.
Mistake in the campaign and the debate.
General, it brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
Where's Trump been? Riding around his golf cart, filling out his scorecard before he hits the ball? I mean, look, he's done virtually nothing.
I am your father.
Roughly 20 major events. Some with thousands of people showing up. And so, I always have an inclination, whether I was playing sports or doing politics.
Holy shit.
Pace myself a little more. Pace myself.
Needs to pace himself.
I'm going to be traveling in just 15 time zones.
Well, guys, I think I'm going to exit stage left here. I'm going to leave you with a little something. I'm having karaoke tomorrow night at 8 p.m. in Crawfordsville at Barefoot. I don't know why I just changed. I just changed something. I don't know what it was. Oh hell. What am I? Oh, is it the close-up? No. I don't even know. Oh, what's highlighted? I don't even know what's highlighted. The flag? The flag? Oh. That should be off. Let's see. No, that's not the right one. There we go. Oh. Let's see. Yeah, that's what it was. It was my flag. That's what got changed around. I didn't have the lock on it. I was trying to make that karaoke thing small. Well, I'm doing karaoke at Barefoot tomorrow in Crawfordsville, and all my friends, I hope they come and enjoy it. Have a good time with us. We usually have a pretty good time out there. So you're welcome to come and join in if you live in the area. That's about it. Well, Biden, I think he's done for people. I don't see, he's awful selfish if he don't drop out, man. I'm telling you. Well, that's going to be it for the show tonight. I've been on long enough, and I'm sure y'all getting tired of my stuff. So till next Thursday. Looks like I gotta fix some of my green screen stuff. I didn't turn that light on behind me, but oh yeah. Till next time.